Hi, feminist ethnography class. Welcome everyone to our one episode podcast, Radical Voices Unveiled. Woo! We are here to explore the untold narratives and powerful works that have shaped the socio-political landscape, and more specifically, we're going over the book called This Bridge Called My Back. I'm Caitlin Barajas.
And I'm Gabby Vasquez, and yes, like Caitlin said, we're going to be exploring This Bridge Called My Back, edited by Sherry Moraga and Gloria Anzaldúa. The voices, to explore the voices and experiences of radical women of color.
Yeah. Okay, so for a brief introduction into the book, this book is one of the readings that we've been assigned, I think, module 4. So some of y'all may have read from it, you may have picked it. I don't think it was mandatory, it was one out of several. So This Bridge Called My Back is a powerful collection that unearths the voices often marginalized in mainstream feminist discourse. So Cherry Morega, in her preface, which is what we're going to be kind of focusing on for the first portion of this podcast, the preface, she is very intentional and she lays out her goals in curating this anthology. So she invites readers into her personal journey, portraying the struggles and growth she underwent as a woman of color. And her aim is not to just share her story, but to highlight the transformative power the anthology holds for both herself and readers. So it's a collection of works by a bunch of different people of color. And not every story or not every passage in this book is from an academic person. So some of them are just experiences and stories. And yeah.
I just want to go back on how you were saying the book is structured, because it is an anthology, and you said she was very specific in her preface. How do you think that kind of impacts the book as a whole? Like, how do you think that intentional way of writing it kind of gives the book the impact it has?
Yeah, I think in this case and in the case of being like observing and breaking down her text like you would do in a paper, I would say the anthology is like her methodology. And to answer your question, like, how do you think that impacts? I think it's a great methodology because it, like, once again, we went over the preface a little bit and we went over her goals. I think it's just really clear how you need to hear. You need to hear from people who have lived it, right? Moragas acknowledges is educational privileges. And it's really a privilege for us to even like be sitting here and talking about and reflecting. But I know that, you know, if both of us read this or was explained like the contents and the reasons of this book when we were younger and before we like came to university, and I think both of us would just kind of be like, oh, so that's what you call it? Like, that's what you call like assimilation or machismo or whatever, like all these terms that we learn in school as like Latina women, like in MAS classes or in feminist ethnography classes. We learn all this stuff, but if we were younger, yeah, we'd just be like, oh wow, I'd go through that, and I didn't know that this was being like academically honored, and you know, it's good that it's in the academic space.
Academically honored, I love that. Like, that's exactly what this is. And honestly, a book like this should hold the same weight as like a scientific article, or you know, how we read like speeches of presidents or other like philosophers and their books. Like I spent a whole year reading Plato.
Yeah.
Like all of Plato, and like girl, I didn't learn half as much from Plato as I do from things like this, you know, because it's something that's relatable and it's like it's current, and that whole current time capsule essence of this book I think is really important, because we were talking about how it was published so quickly and things like that. If you want to get into that, or we'll get into it later.
Yes. How can academia further represent and acknowledge diverse voices? And I would say one of the biggest ways is like literally changing curriculum. Yeah, because this is something that, like you said, it should be taken seriously, and it's finally in the academic realm, and we should be learning it in elementary school, middle school. It's really important for people to learn that their experiences, you know, are valid, and also there's reasons why we may experience certain like risk factors. There's even protective factors that we have as Latinas, you know, coming from an ethnic culture. It's like being part of our culture saves us in this world. And yeah, I mean, I kind of got off track, but
yeah, so let's talk about La Güera. Let's talk about that chapter, because I have beef with the word La Güera. Like, my family would always call me that as a kid, because I'm half Argentinian, half Mexican. So anytime I go to the Mexican side, they'd be like, okay, güera, and I'm like, stop calling me that. But it's funny.
Yes. Okay, so we just talked about the preface. We went over that, and we gave a little critique on the preface and the structure. And so now I want to get into, some of the contents of the actual book. So like Gabby mentioned, La Güera is a section written by Moraga herself. And once again, not every section is centered around Latinos, but you know, given our identity, I think we have the right to speak on it and to add to the conversation. So La Güera is about privilege. It's about internalized racism. Moraga shares her personal narrative that reflects on her identity and her privileges as a well-educated daughter of a Chicana mother and a white father. She talks about her mom's struggles as a farm worker and the family's history of poverty. And so she also brings up her own upbringing, and she really goes into her privilege when it comes to education and also her complexion, being a white Latina. And, you know, that's allowed her to pass in the white world.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. It's something I think about every day. Like, even just being a second generation here in the States, it's like that puts me at a complete advantage over my parents and like ages above like my grandparents who came here with nothing, you know? So it's definitely something I don't take for granted. I mean, lucky for me, I'm not like half white Caucasian, so like but no, like my mom's side is Argentinian, my dad's side is Mexican, and so my mom's side is like white Latinos versus my dad's side completely brown ethnic native Latinos. So it's like having that shift and like you can just see it in like the socioeconomic class and like their upbringings and like how my mom's family was able to pass in the white world, even though they didn't really get too involved in the white world. They obviously, you somehow profit from it, you know, one way or another. Versus my dad's side, who's still like, my grandma's house is still in the barrio there in East Downtown, a predominantly Hispanic community. So it's just like, it's really interesting to see how both sides of my family have like progressed in different ways, in different directions because of their, you know, skin tone and things like that. So it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, and so in this passage, she talks a lot about like the white world, and I think this really like interested me because I know that something that's really special to both of us is our community, which would be the Latino community. And I think what's also something that needs to be recognized is that, you know, Gloria Anzaldúa is creating community, and she's creating work that goes directly back to the Latino community, or just marginalized communities in general. and that's something that we like seek to do. You know, we're not planning to enter the white world. We're planning to enter our communities wherever we are. You know, in Houston, in San Antonio, where I'm from. I think also, like, just to really acknowledge that, you know, as we talk about community and how we're going to go into community, it's really, really, like, important that we also honor the way that Gloria Anzaldúa and Cherry Moraga, how they're not only giving back to the community, but they're also like taking up space and creating more space for us to keep going and creating these systems and rebuilding and completely tearing down old things, building new things. So yeah, let's just get right into maybe one of the critiques of this anthology, which that would be the fact that the book was written super, super quick. And you had mentioned it earlier, and now we're just going to get into that, but it was written in maybe like a year or two. And that poses the question of just how expansive, inclusive, intersectional could it be in such a short time. And I wouldn't argue that any of the content is like invalid. I think all of it is important, but we have to wonder, like, are there disabled voices, like are from maybe mentally disabled people of color and their experience, physically disabled people, you know, and their experience in this world.
No, for sure. And like we were discussing, like we hope there's a second edition or something, or a third or a fourth or a fifth. Just because, you know, like even though this book is like, I think it's important to know that this book is just so current, and it was kind of like a snapshot, a time capsule of the time. And because it was published so quickly, I think they really did the best they could in gathering as many voices as possible. But yeah, I mean, of course, there's always room for more. There's so many people whose voices are not heard. There's always room.
Yes, and I think it's like really important what you said. It's like a time capsule, and you know, it can be added to, and it can be expanded on, and yeah, hopefully there will be more additions. But it as itself, aside from that critique of, you know, just how expansive is it, aside from that, I would say, you know, because once again, not every story is from an academic. A lot of this is just, it's all experiences. And I just think that as a whole is already something that is honorable and something that impacts us as academics, but also us as people. It's a really cool work. Any other questions?
I guess after reading this, like, how do you view your identity as a queer Latina? Has anything changed? Have you added anything? Any new experiences or anything that made you think like, I've never really thought about it in that way?
Yeah. I think this really urges me, well, you know, this book asks the questions of like, how do we get academia to represent us better? How do we battle internalized racism? It asks, how do we go about like other erased voices? How do we just deal with all of that? And I feel like just even thinking about those questions already influences my identity, because, you know, when you think critically, it's like, oh yeah, how is the actual best way for us to make change? And that really had me thinking, and I really think the best way is like curriculum. And you know, then there's like personal things you can do for yourself, but just asking critical questions like that already impacts me. And you know, this book is full of those questions, full of them.
I'm out of questions.
I think I'm out of questions too. So yeah, that was our critique, and our explanation, our introduction, our analysis, our observation of this book, this bridge called My Back. Even just the title, this bridge, intersectionality, but also maybe weight, or no, I mean, this bridge called My Back.
This connecting
factor. Yeah, and I think of also about I think about someone's literal back being a bridge, and you're carrying all that weight, carrying all of this trauma, all this experience, and also transforming it and transmuting it, I guess, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's it called? Empowering it.
Yes.
Empowering your bridge. Yes.
So yeah, that was our episode. Thank you again. Hope you enjoyed it. My name's Caitlin Barajas.
And I'm Gabby Vasquez. Thank you.
Woo!